So today I am in a very glamorous audio booth in London recording my audiobook. And I think that you imagine when you hear someone recording an audiobook, because I listen to them all the time, you imagine this kind of luxurious setting, cups of tea on tap, all of that kind of thing. But actually they just stick you in a box in the corner of a room and it's really boiling in here. You're here for days and days on end, just reading words.
Is it nice to read your book out loud? Like, because you wrote this, you sat and wrote it and slaved over it for so long, and I imagine you don't read it out loud when you're doing it at home. No. So what's it like to read your own book out loud?
Well, the thing is, actually, you don't really read your own book. I mean, the first time I read my own book was when I was doing the audiobook. Because, I mean, you're sort of like doing little bits here and there. And then, you never have a chance to sort of sit down and read it all in one go. So that was quite nice, quite reassuring to know that actually as a book it does work. Rather than just these disparate chunks of text that are mashed together.
I mean, it feels like it must be too late to change the book. But I imagine if you're anything like me, you're someone who could change things forever and ever and constantly improve things. Reading it, does it make you think, oh, I did that wrong, or I wish I could change that? Or are you not in that mindset when you're reading it?
Well, you're certainly looking for, embarrassing faux pas that you made along the way, and slightly cringing when you come across them. But I think I can't remember who said it, but there's this line about how you never actually finish a book, you just hand it over. Knowing that it's never going to be, you're never going to get it perfect. Because I think you can just work on something forever and ever and ever. You just got to let it go. So it's like that with PhDs, actually. My PhD students are like that. I'm just like, you need to let it go.
Are you imagining the listener? Or what's in your head when you're looking at the words and talking to the microphone? Are you imagining reading it to someone tucked up in bed or a huge audience? Or are you not doing that? What's in your head when you're doing it?
I think you're thinking that someone hasn't heard it. They're hearing it for the first time. And I also think what you have to do, you have to quite vary your pace a bit. So when I started working at the BBC, doing radio for them, they sent me on this training session where I got to sit with one of the BBC News presenters who basically taught me kind of how to read a script. Because actually, although you're just reading, which is quite an easy thing to do, if you're careful, it can sound a lot like you're reading, and that is very boring to listen to. So if you're reading, like, If You Live in the EU by the time this book is published, it just doesn't sound very interesting. So what they make you do, right, in this training course at the BBC, is they give you a bit of Winnie the Pooh and they make you read it in your most sort of kid-friendly voice possible. And they record it and kind of play it back to you. And then they ask you to read some of your own script in that same voice. And what you notice is that when you're doing like a kid's book, or you're really trying to kind of engage a child, you use the whole range of tones. So you go up and then you go all the way down. Whereas if you just read something without thinking about it, you end up being in quite a narrow band in the way that you use your voice. So obviously you don't want to read an adult book like you were reading Winnie the Pooh, it'd sound ridiculous. But you do want to make sure that you're still using that full range. So I do think about that quite a lot when I'm reading. I make sure that I'm continually using the full range, because otherwise I think it ends up sounding quite boring. And varying the pace as well, so doing some bits quick and then some bits slow.
Watching you through the window, you seem to use a lot of body language and gesticulate a lot. Is that deliberate? Is that a way of making you do those things? Or
yeah, I think you are. I probably do use my hands a bit too much, actually. I didn't realise you were filming that bit. Slightly embarrassing that I'm like, I think you kind of have to, really. Otherwise, it's just natural. I think it's natural.
And lastly, do you want to give us the pitch of the book? For people who are considering the book or the audiobook.
Okay, but I haven't thought about my pitch. I haven't got it down.
What's the book called and what's it about?
Okay, so it's called Hello World: How to Be Human in the Age of the Machine, and it's about how mathematical algorithms are increasingly ruling every aspect of our lives. So the most famous example of this is the Cambridge Analytica stuff, how there were these sort of quiet processes going on behind the scenes that were collecting our data and using it against us. But Cambridge Analytica is really not the only example here. You find these kind of algorithms, in our supermarkets, in our hospitals, in our courtrooms, in our police stations, even in the way that we're kind of consuming art, right? And this book is just about taking stock of those and really kind of asking what that means for our society and whether we're headed on a path that we want for ourselves in our future.
Is it a book you really wanted to write, or does someone suggest it? Why write this book?
So this is the first. I've done 2 books before that have been perhaps on the sillier side of things, and this one is much closer to my own research. So I do a lot of research, working with governments, working with police forces, working with retailers as well, kind of using people's data and trying to understand patterns in human behaviour. And in doing that, there have been a few moments where I have sort of wondered about the morality, really, of what is going on. And so that's the reason why I wanted to do a book about this, was just the people who are writing these algorithms aren't really talking to the people who are having algorithms make decisions about their lives. And I think it's important to, make a bridge between those 2 groups.
Hi everyone, if you do decide to check out Hannah's audiobook of Hello World, do consider downloading it on Audible, who were the sponsor of our main video, and you can use the URL audible.com/Numberphile. Using that URL does Numberphile a bit of a favour because they know you came from here. I'll include more links in the video description about Hannah and her book and her other books so you can check all that stuff out. Thanks for watching.